I'm informed all over the city talking to people who are experiencing houselessness.
We begin tonight with our homeless crisis. We're sitting down with both candidates for Portland City Council to hear how they plan to address one of the biggest issues in the Rose City. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko. We've already heard from challenger Renee Gonzalez, and today Blair Best followed up with incumbent Commissioner Joanne Hardesty.
That what we see on our
Portland City Council Commissioner Joanne Hardesty calls the crisis on our streets misery.
And my biggest fear is that it's only going to get worse in January.
So Portlanders across the board believe there needs to be change in the city's response to this crisis. What in your eyes isn't working with how the city responds? What would you do differently if reelected, and why haven't you done it already?
Well, let me just say I've never had the Housing Bureau in my portfolio. I don't supervise the Joint Office of Houseless Services. But what I would do, what I think should happen differently, because of my leadership, Commissioner Dan Ryan is in a position to renegotiate the intergovernmental agreement with the next Multnomah County chairperson. If I was a queen of the universe for a day and had housing, I would immediately, after the November elections, convene a meeting with the next governor, the next county chair, and our federal delegation, and I would actually create a work group and say, how are we going to address this issue?
Mayor Wheeler's homeless plan to build 3 large homeless campuses over an 18-month period and ban unsanctioned camping. You said you were disappointed with the lack of details in funding and that it needs to be more urgent. Can you explain your stance on this, and what do you propose that they do differently?
Well, the mayor wants to take 18 months to develop a plan to get funding and to launch the first whatever he's calling those camps. If there's a sense of urgency, and again, what's come in front of us has no dollars attached to it, no plan about how we accomplish it, no sites already pre-selected. So if there's this real sense of urgency, and this isn't just a political stunt, we should have much more detail, and we should actually be on a much faster track.
One of the amendments that you're suggesting is having the 3 large camping sites spread across the city, not in just one targeted neighborhood. Do you have any examples of where those could be?
Let me just say that I am not supporting 500-person camps anywhere. What I know is that normally 40 to 60 people should be the maximum. I think the mayor would find it impossible to find a place where the community would welcome 500 houseless people living together willy-nilly.
You say in your 3 years on council you've accomplished the highly effective Portland Street response that reduces the workload on the Portland Police Bureau. However, those workers are inundated with calls. Last month they received the most amount of calls they ever have, and they still have to return some of those calls to the Portland Police Bureau.
Yes, as you know, we are still rolling out Portland Street Response citywide. On July 1st of this year, in fact, I was authorized to expand Portland Street Response citywide. So you're talking about going from 4 workers to about 70 plus workers, and we're in the process of hiring and training. And again, Portland Street Response goal is not to go from call to call to call. It was created so that it could provide care to people where they are, when they need it.
If re-elected, she plans to work system-wide to expand Portland Street Response to address the addiction and mental health crisis on our streets.
Your opponent in this race calls you the most radical member of City Council on these issues, and at times the most passive with respect to addressing unsheltered camps.
Not quite sure what my opponent means by that. I'm really clear about my role and my role of making sure that we are taking care of the people in the city of Portland. And that's why I've been focused on trying to remove barriers so that people can live their best lives.
If homelessness is someone's #1 concern, why should they vote for you?
If homelessness is their #1 concern, they should vote for me because I'm the only candidate that understands the economic cliff that workers are experiencing. I know what people are seeing who are fortunate enough to have homes is but for grace, but for a paycheck, but for a lost job, there go I. So someone who understands what it's like to be a working person, someone who understands how systems work, and I know we need all of them in order to address our crises on the street, which is houselessness.
Commissioner Hardesty also talked of housing the homeless in vacant buildings around the city and allocating $1 billion statewide for affordable housing. You can watch the full interview along with the one we did with Renee Gonzalez on KGW+. And a reminder, Election Day is November 8th. Blair Best, KGW News.
Let's talk about the race for Oregon governor. Far and away the most expensive governor's campaign in state history. According to the Oregonians, some $66 million raised by the campaigns and counting. Mike Benner's in the newsroom for us. Mike, we heard it right here during our debate. The three candidates may disagree on a lot, though not when it comes to voting.
Yeah, that's right, David. Their message is clear. Regardless of who you support, get out and vote. Do what you have to do to turn in that ballot. This afternoon at North Clackamas Park in Milwaukee, candidate for governor Christine Drazen joined candidate for Congress Lori Chavez DeRemer in thanking volunteers who would spend some time canvassing in the surrounding neighborhood. Both women know the importance of turning in a ballot. So too does Tina Kotek. This morning in North Portland, Kotek, joined by a Franklin High School student voting for the first time, turned in her ballot. Kotek is optimistic others will follow her lead.
You know, the excitement and energy from young voters is, just amazing. Been on college campuses, students here in high school who are just like voting for the first time, very excited, and it's such an important election for the future of our state, and I think our young voters know that.
Yeah, the people that participate are going to decide the future of our state. Nothing is more important right now than making the decision to vote. And events like this, volunteers like this, they're the ones that are the engine behind this effort. This is for Oregonians by Oregonians.
All right, so we also caught up with Betsy Johnson today. She spent part of her Wednesday meeting with Portland area business owners who are tired of what she calls lawlessness in the city. If others are frustrated by it too, Johnson says they should get out and vote. As far as how many Oregonians have voted thus far, voter turnout is sitting at 21.1% with less than a week until Election Day. David.
Mike Benner in the newsroom, 6 days to go. And if you are still hanging on to your ballot, we've got a voter guide to help brief you on the candidates and the issues. It's up for you now on KGW.com. Stay with NBC News and KGW for special coverage over the next week, including as the results come in next Tuesday, election night.
A man who pleaded guilty to committing acts of eco-terrorism in western states was sentenced Tuesday. The sentence for Joseph Debe comes more than 2 decades after his crimes were committed because he became a fugitive after fleeing the country. Tim Gordon has more.
It is not the sentence prosecutors wanted for 54-year-old Joseph Debe. He pleaded guilty to committing 2 arsons in Oregon and California connected to the domestic eco-terrorism group Earth Liberation Front. The government wanted 7 years for Debe. On Tuesday, a federal judge in Eugene sentenced him to time served of 29 months. That's how long he spent in custody since being returned to the United States by Cuban authorities. He was a fugitive for more than a decade, living in Russia and Syria.
From the point that he left until the point that he returned, nothing about his life or anything else indicated that this was a person who hadn't learned from this experience and hadn't changed from the kind of guy that would have been involved.
Defense attorney Matt Schindler says Debe admitted guilt and apologized for what he did, being part of a group that set fire to a wild horse slaughterhouse in Central Oregon in 1997, and also for burning a Bureau of Land Management wild horse corral in Litchfield, California in 2001. The sentence is far less than some other defendants in the case got.
In total, Debe has evaded capture for more than 12 years. So today we recognize the FBI's unwavering pursuit of justice.
Billy Williams was U.S. Attorney for Oregon when Debe was taken into custody in 2018. Now in private practice, he says he respects the court but disagrees with the sentence.
Whether you're an eco-terrorist or another form of terrorism, whatever your terrorism choice is, you don't get to engage in that criminal conduct without an expectation that you're going to be held accountable. even after all these years of your fleeing and avoiding the consequences.
Dibby's attorney says the consequences were severe during his client's time in custody at Multnomah County's Inverness Jail. Dibby was the first inmate to get the coronavirus and suffered a broken jaw being assaulted by another inmate.
Yeah, he's incredibly grateful and thankful he didn't go to jail anymore, on one hand. On the other hand, you know, there are consequences that emanate for something like this that stick with you for a long time.
As part of the plea agreement, Dibby was ordered to serve 1,000 hours of community service and to pay part of $1.3 million in restitution. Tim Gordon, KGW News.